Today's episode is sponsored by Podmatch. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page. From to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard, Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't want to get paid from home? I know I like to get paid from home. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. So, if you are a host or a guest and want to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, you can sign up today at joinpodmatch.com/lethalvenom and begin expanding your network in seconds. Again, that is joinpodmatch.com/lethalvenom. Thank you so much to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. And now onto my very fun interview with Mr. Alex Sanfilippo. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom podcast. This is the podcast where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. And for today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Alex Sanfilippo. He is a podcaster and the founder of podmatch.com, which is a platform that automatically matches podcast hosts and guests for interviews. And Alex, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And I want to just briefly mention, you've been a great inspiration in my life, and I just want to say thank you for that. I know that you're pretty vocal about this, but you've overcome some mental health issues and struggles and stuff like that, and you've done a really good job of not letting it define you, but instead you've leveraged that to serve other people. And I find that very inspiring. And so I just want to say thank you for what you do here, and it's an honor to be here with you today.
Well, thank you so much. So if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So, Alex Sanfilippo, and thank you for saying my name right, by the way. I really appreciate that. Very rare. But I run a podcast myself, and I also run a podcasting software. So, I have a podcast about podcasting because I have a software company that's for podcast guests and hosts. And you referenced Podmatch, which is a service that connects podcast guests and hosts for interviews. And that's what I do for work. And it's also what I do for fun because I really do love podcasting. And outside of that, my wife and I, we live in Jacksonville, Florida, near the ocean. We like to ride bikes, go to the beach. We're both fairly active when it comes to working out and sports and stuff like that. So just enjoying life. So I do a lot on the computer, and then when I'm not on the computer doing software and podcasting, I like to be outside any chance I get, and that's a little bit about me.
So how did you start and get into podcasting?
It was kind of by mistake. Noah, the first time. Do you remember the first time you heard a podcast? Actually, do you remember like the first time someone sent you a podcast or you heard it happening? Do you recall that, or was that a while ago?
The first time I listened to a podcast was probably in 2019.
Okay.
That's probably when I first heard a podcast.
So for me, it was 2014, which is the same year I ended up starting a show. But the first time I heard one, I was leading a, I was working in the aerospace industry. More boring than it sounds. But I was walking to one of my departments and I heard audio. And I walked to the back. I looked at the computer screen. The screen was blank. I was like, "Are you all listening to something or watching something?" Like, "No, just listening to a podcast." I was like, "What's that?" They're like, "Audio. People just talk back and forth." And I said, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." I'm like, "Why are you just sitting here listening to this?" And then a few minutes later, I was like, "Hey, who is this? This is actually pretty interesting." They all made fun of me. Long story short, I started listening to a podcast and I loved it. I fell in love with the medium of it, which in my initial response was, "This is stupid." And it turned into, I really like this. So 2014 was my initiation into podcasting. I started it sitting in my car talking into my phone. And I was really just sharing some of my thoughts and perspectives that time in my life. And just hoping they would help and serve somebody. And I really like caught the bug. So 2014, again, started in my car on a phone and have grown over the years and making it happen. That was kind of my introduction to podcasting.
That's awesome. What made you decide to build software solutions specifically for podcasters?
Yeah, when I started really getting into podcasting, so sure, the whole car story and stuff is fun, but when I got a proper microphone, which is something I really wanted to do, and started building a show and building a team around it, I did really well in podcasting. And I started speaking at all the podcasting conferences. I'll never forget, I was actually on stage the beginning of the year in 2020, just before the world shut down. It's about 2,000 people there. And when I got off stage, I just said, "Hey, if anyone would like to have a conversation, I'd love to chat with anyone I can." And I had I'm very thankful. I had a lot of people come up and talk to me, And I just had pen and paper in hand and I asked them, hey, what is it that you're struggling with in podcasting? What's the pain point right now? And I heard a lot of things that day, but I heard 100 people say the same thing, which is, Alex, I'm having trouble finding that next right guest for my show. And it can be cumbersome. It can take a lot of time. I wanted to stream on that process. Like, what can I do? And so I heard that and I went home with that. And that's ultimately what made me decide to get into podcasting as a software founder. I knew I wanted to do something in software. I knew I wanted to be in podcasting. And then when this idea was presented, I went home and whiteboarded it out. And basically, what I came up with is it's like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. And basically built that out. And so it just kind of happened. It felt very organic and very natural because it was the space I knew I wanted to be in. I knew to be an entrepreneur in that space, I needed to find the problem that the people I said I wanted to serve were struggling with, and then offer that solution. So that's what made me want to get into it, the passion for podcasting, and then just finding the problem.
What gear do you recommend to new podcasters that want to start podcasting? What kind of software and gear should they have?
Yeah, no, this is always a fun conversation because, like I said, my first one, like being in the car and my phone, I don't suggest that. Which, no, what was I thinking? Like in the car, like it was so bad. Running the AC. I don't know why I thought that that would be a good idea, but it was not. So when I think about proper gear and when I started investing in it, what I learned the hard way is that the microphone that you want should be what's called dynamic instead of condenser. So a condenser microphone picks up sound from everywhere. And that was the first microphone I got. And I remember even complaining to my wife. I was like, my phone sounds better than this. I'm like, because I can hear the neighbors talking and mowing the lawn in this thing. I'm like, how do I make it stop? I'm like, now I need a studio. Is this how microphones work? Well, it turns out I was using what's called a condenser microphone. A dynamic microphone is like what I'm using right now, which if I step just 5 feet away from the microphone, you won't be able to hear me anymore. And so if you don't have a full on proper studio build out, this is much better because there can be someone in the next room talking, your neighbor can be mowing the lawn, a dog can be barking, someone can be talking to you in this room and people can't hear it. So I always suggest a dynamic microphone. Here's the thing, that all this gear has is not as expensive as it once was. Even when I got this microphone I'm using, it was one of the few options and I spent a couple $100 on it that time. But now if you use any of these online marketplace websites, including Amazon, you can find a really great USB dynamic microphone and spend less than $50. And that's my suggestion. You can spend less than $20 and still get one. Like, look at the reviews, of course. But I really also, I'm not a tech guy, which sounds funny to say as a software founder. I like everything to be USB. I like it to plug straight into my laptop. So this microphone I'm using right now plugs straight into my laptop. Same with the camera. I'm using a Logitech 4K webcam. There's all kinds of webcams, same thing. They're all basically the same, I found at this point. I want one that plug right into my laptop. So both of these devices, they plug right into my laptop. And then I just got some supporting lighting in my room. I have LEDs that hit the wall behind me. It's just a gray wall that looks like it's blue because of the LEDs hitting it. I have two lights that are kind of making the room a little bit more blasted out, right? And that stuff came over time. You don't even need all that to get started, but it's just something that I've, after however many years it's been since 2014, like continue, I've just been up leveling my space time and time again and just kind of moving along, but slowly and adding little things here and there. But again, the gear that I suggest, like the actual hardware, so the physical stuff, USB microphone that's dynamic, a webcam that's shooting 480 or 4K, 1080, sorry, 1080K or whatever it is in 4K. I don't know how it all works, but that's USB as well, some proper lighting. And then on the software side, if you're wanting to be a podcaster, whether it be a guest or a host, and I guess as a guest, you show up to the host recording studio. Zoom is a really great solution. I use Riverside.fm. I like it because it gives me a bunch of it does a bunch of the editing and stuff in the background, and so I like that side of things because it simplifies it for me. So that's Riverside.fm. That's really all you need to podcast, and then of course a hosting provider. So when you're ready to upload something or be the host, you need to upload it somewhere. But anyway, no, sorry, I just talked a whole lot. I don't know if I made sense or not.
No, no. And from my experience with it, I had a similar story, Alex. I recorded everything on my phone
Okay.
because that was the only thing I had. And I actually took a podcasting class at Auburn. My my story with the podcast, and I've not really told it, but I wanted to save it for this particular episode. This podcast was not just a random thing. This was like a 4 or 5 year process of trying to get my podcast up and going. I wanted to start the podcast back in 2021 or 2022. And due to some personal stuff that happened, it kept getting postponed. And then when I came to Auburn, I remember I was in a journalism class, and we had a lot of guests come, and it was mostly men that came and talked about sports and sports journalism. So it was stuff I didn't particularly want to hear about. So then one day I walked in the class, and there was this guy that came in. I thought, oh, okay, I'm not gonna listen. And then he said, "Yes, I'm starting a podcast." Because I went, "Hello, hello." I woke up. I was like, "I'm awake now." I said, "Hello," and so he talked about he was starting a podcasting class here at Auburn, and I went to my advisor and I said, "I want to be first on that list. I want." I said, "Put me on that list first. I want to be first dibs." And luckily, I got in the class and started it, and we learned a lot about podcasting. We learned about software. We learned about microphones. And so I started out on my phone because I was a college student at the time. And of course, I didn't have the money to get like these fancy microphones, even like a $20 mic. And my school had a podcast studio. It was kind of more like a recording studio, and I would go in there and record some episodes, which never really got released. I always deleted them because this flow of how I talked, I didn't like. And I've also, in the studio, it was so quiet because it used actual padding and foam to where no one outside, but I felt like I had to whisper because I felt like everyone could hear me outside. So every episode, I'm like, I was like talking this close to my phone. And so I did that. And then, like you said, I use Zoom for the guest interviews and all that. And for editing software, I use Adobe because Auburn was very much Adobe friendly. They used Adobe everything. So I use Adobe Audition. I use it. I used to have it for free because the school paid it. And then after I graduated, they were like, "We're gonna take your free membership away." And I thought, okay. And
Oh
so
no.
I know I was so mad. I was like, and
You're like, I'm still alumni. I should still be able to have anyway, sorry about that.
exactly. I was so mad. I said, listen, I was so mad, but I use Adobe Audition. Now there's probably other softwares out there that you can use to edit. I have heard GarageBand, you can also edit on that. It's free, but for me, I tried it and almost had a breakdown because I couldn't figure it out. But I have heard GarageBand is a way. Um, but for me, Audition's really much simple and it's easy because you can actually do some more stuff on there than other platforms can. And the microphone I use now is like a HyperX Solocast. It actually was a gift to me. It was a complete gift. It's a USB. So I've got it attached to my computer and it goes into the slot and it just automatically connects to it. My computer can automatically is aware and recognizes that there's a microphone added. I just make sure that when I'm going to record, that I have the microphone selected, and then I just record and talk to that. I actually record everything in Adobe Audition. But usually when I do the Zoom recordings, I usually record through Zoom and then transfer that audio into Audition to edit. So that's how I do mine, and that's how my process started.
That's smart. And I think that that's so Adobe is considered one of the best platforms for editing. It just has a bit more of a learning curve. For most people, it sounds like you figured it out pretty quick, which is great. But I think you're using a great tools like a tool set to be able to do this podcasting thing. And you know what's interesting though? Like anyone I talk to, and they're like, "Ooh, I want to do a podcast. It's just too much work." I don't know if you've heard that as well. People are like, "Oh yeah, I would need like huge budget, like $5,000 to get started and stuff." And I'm always like, "Who told you that?" Right? Like,
Right.
where did you get that information?
A lot of people were very skeptical about my idea. I mean, I remember when I first brought the idea of this podcast in my class, people were like, I don't know about the name. They were like, I don't think that's gonna work. And then I was like, screw you guys. I'm not gonna listen to you guys. I took it, but I didn't run with it. I was like, I'm just going to do my own idea. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm not gonna care what anyone says. And so I started it, and some of my friends have actually been surprised at how quickly the podcast took off. And I've even been surprised as well. Like the other day, I reached like 500 downloads, and I've only had the
That's
podcast going for
amazing.
like which I think it was nearing 600 the other day or like yesterday. And I've only been posting since May. So it's crazy how much it's just skyrocketed over. And my best friend, he was like, I didn't think your podcast would do this well. He said, I knew in long term it would, but this quickly. And I said, I always come, I always surprise people. So, you know, I always tell people, start a podcast, don't get mad if it doesn't take off immediately, because that's how it was with me. Um, I basically had to put a gun to my friend's head and be like, listen to my show. It was like,
Right?
it
I did the
was like,
same
listen to my
thing when I
show.
launched.
It was like, listen to my show, you're dead.
Right?
And then slowly enough, it started getting momentum. So I'm very passionate about it. It's the only thing I'm passionate about. Um, I think one reason why people don't like it is, or love it, is how honest I am on it, and I'm open about talking about anything. Um, my most is it's cocky for me to say, but I feel like the more tea filled I get, the more popular it is. Because I don't know if you listened to my classmate episode,
What was it titled? Do you remember the title of it?
my classmates.
Oh, no, the latest one I listened to actually today was Don't Cancel Me, but you
Oh,
caught me with that title. I had to listen to it. Which, by the way, a quick side note, I love that you're engaging your listeners, but the 11 pet peeves that you shared, like the people said, the common one was very shocking to me. It was shocking to you as well, I know, but that was very shocking to me. So, anyway, sorry, that was the last episode of yours I just listened to. I don't think I listened to the Classmates one, though. I'd have to go back and check to see if that was one of them.
oh, that was very tea filled. If you heard like a lot of bleeps in it, that was that one.
Okay. Oh, oh
I
yeah, then
bleeped out I bleeped out every name, and that's why I think a lot of people liked it is, which I think the only reason why it has so much, it's like my most streamed episode. It's had like over 100 streams on it, and I was like, I think it's because a lot of my classmates wanted to go see if I talked crap about them, and was like, I won't see what he said about me, but I bleeped all their names out. Like that episode was my longest edited. It took me probably 4 days to edit because I wanted to make sure no name got leaked on my show. I did not want a civil case against me. I didn't want no hate coming towards me. It was like, I want this episode to not cause me trouble. And so I literally sat there and I listened to that whole episode and like 2 times. So that was like one of the longest I've ever spent on an episode because I wanted everything to be completely confidential. I didn't want nothing. And I think that's why people liked it so much. It was honest. It was kind of entertaining to hear my opinions. It was a lot of cursing on there. It was like a lot of it was just a lot of tea. So um
I gotta say, I think that that's the one of the things of podcasting that people don't understand. It's the vulnerability and the transparency that really resonates with people. I mean, listen, we can go use any search engine or AI tool this day to find out how to do whatever we want, right? But like a person's actual feelings, thoughts, opinions, I think that that's more and more we're going to see people like in podcasting. I think that your show proves that. Your show that was the most probably most transparent, most vulnerable, most tea in it, right? Was the one that people seem to be like, oh, I'm going to go back and listen to that one again. So I think there's something to be said there for the person who's hearing this. It might be like, oh, I want to do this podcasting thing, but it's struggling with like being a perfectionist. I don't think that that's important. I mean, I think we need to learn to let that go. And I know it's easier said than done for sure. We need to be more focused on the vulnerability that we have, the transparency, how we show up and share. People want to hear us in the rawest form they can because that's what they resonate with. It's a human hearing from another human and it feels authentic.
absolutely. So why do you recommend that podcasters spend time doing things that don't scale?
Yeah, so doing things that don't scale, it kind of goes right along with this point, Noah. And to me, what that means is don't automate everything. I guess is what it comes down to, or don't pull yourself out of the equation completely. I've met a number of people in the podcasting space and more in the software space where the founder of it doesn't want to be involved in anything other than making really big decisions. So because they can scale big decisions, right? You can have the team scale, but I don't want to talk to anybody, right? It was kind of like the feeling I found when I got further along in podcasting, but more so in the software side of things. And so when I say do things that don't scale, I think it's really important as a podcast host, a podcast guest, a software founder to be willing to still put yourself in front of people and do things that don't scale. Here's a perfect example of this, Noah. I get asked it's at least 5 times a day to be a guest on different podcasts. And I say no to most of them because I have to. But in the name of doing things that don't scale, I am still going to be a guest on the right shows. And when I listened to Lethal Venom, I was like, this is one that I want to be on. I like Noah. Like I resonate with Noah. I want to go on that show. It doesn't scale. I can't like go on 100 shows a day ever because there's only so many hours in the day, right? But I'm
Right.
always going to put into practice doing things that don't scale. Two reasons. One, it keeps me in touch with the people that I say I serve. I can't claim to serve somebody that I don't know, right? Like I need to check the pulse and be involved in it. But two, it reminds you that there's actually people involved in it. And one of the biggest problems I see with some of the big software companies is they don't care how you feel. They don't care what you want. They've built something so big that they just separate themselves from it, and then they forget that they're building for humans, right? We're all building things for robots these days, and I find it really frustrating. Like even some big social media tools, and listen, I'm grateful for them overall, I suppose, but sometimes it's really frustrating because I'm like, you're not really doing anything good for people anymore. You're just trying to make more money, and it's like if someone at the top would just spend a few minutes with people every day, they might start building things a little bit differently in a way that actually helps and serves people. And so for me, I want to be that serve first, that love people first founder. And I have to do things that don't scale if I'm really going to make sure that I can do that long term.
How can podcasters find and book ideal guests for their show?
Yeah. So I think it starts off with knowing who your ideal guest is. Like, who is your ideal guest? And I don't mean like the person's name. I mean, what is it that they embody? What are their characteristics? What do they like? What do they not like? Do they think similar to you? Do they think in a way that's going to help your listeners? So I think first and foremost, it starts with the host knowing who they're looking for. And once you know that, doing the outreach can be cumbersome and take a lot of work. And I'm not here to talk about my own product or service. Podmatch.com was literally designed for that. So I will just reference that. Like it will help you connect and match you with these guests that are the right fit for you. Even just creating your profile, I think, is actually a very good practice for hosts to go through because it will prompt you with a bunch of questions that will help. So I always suggest that. But beyond that, think about who you know. Who do your friends know? Who did you go to school with? Right? Like, who are the people, the professors maybe that you really resonate with? Like, would they be interested in coming on? Maybe start there. And then I do always suggest to branch out of your immediate network because I find some of the best conversations are outside of your comfort zone, which is usually talking to someone that you don't know really well. So I just suggest like knowing who you want and then going out there and starting to ask. We do not have because we don't ask. We need to start making the ask. And there are tools that can help with that, but nothing beats just getting out there and getting started.
So, what are some tips for pitching a podcast that you want to be a guest on?
So pitching, this is the fun one, Noah, because you have a good show. So I imagine you get hit up by people all the time wanting to be a guest. I can't imagine what your inboxes look like. People are always like, Noah, please let me on your show. The reality is there's an out of balance in podcasting right now. There are 41 to guests to every one host. So a 41 to 1 ratio. There's a lot of people wanting to be guests versus being hosts. That's not a problem. It just means you have to reach out differently. The days of being like, Noah, let me on your show, that's probably behind us. At that point, no, you're probably like, I've got 10 other people right behind you. They all sent me a reason. Like, all you're going to say is, let me on your show, right? We have to be more tactful than that. My first suggestion is to listen to the show. Like, as soon as I got introduced to Noah and it was like a show that was presented as one I might be able to be on, the first thing I did is listen because I wanted to make sure that I'd be able to show up and add value and have a good time, like not be miserable, right? Like, so I was like, again, I said earlier, but I was like, I like Noah, I like the vision behind this. This is the type of show I like to be on. And so I think that if you're going to be a guest, first and foremost, listen, make sure it's going to be the right fit, and then reach out. When you reach out, lead with value. What I mean by that is don't start off saying, hey, I want to be a guest because I want to talk about this and I want to promote my book and I want to get people to listen to me. That's not leading with value. That's saying what's in it for you. Leading with value is saying, no, I really enjoyed your show. You're doing a really good job. I can just hear the passion in your voice. I left your show a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcast. Like that right there is leading with value. I mean, most hosts would nod and be like, yep, yeah, that's good. Like I would like for a guest to do that. So I say lead with value. The next thing that you want to do is to make a meaningful request. And what that means is have an ask in it because sometimes I get pitched for people wanting to be on my show, but they don't actually ask. They just word vomit everything that they've ever accomplished and done. And I'm at the end, I'm like, congratulations. Like, I don't know what to say, like, and I'm not trying to be rude. I don't know what they want because they didn't make a clear ask. We have to have a clear ask. So after you're done leading with value, the next thing is to make a meaningful request. And To make it meaningful means to have a reason. Suggest a topic, suggest something that you actually know that you want to say in it, a topic that will help the host and their listeners. That goes a really long way. And the last piece I'll mention here is to make it, or sorry, is to mention sharing the episode. Only if you actually are going to. Like for me, I share every episode I'm on. We create a blog post and link to it so the host gets some SEO backlink juice and stuff like that. Like we try to go all out because I'm only part of things I want to be part of and that I believe in. So I want to share it. So don't lie. If you're the guest who's like, I'm not sharing any of this ever, don't say you're going to. Have some integrity, right? But if you are willing to share like me, voice it, mention it. Because most hosts really struggle to get their guests to share anything. And so I think it's just important to do. And for me, like as a host myself, I just see the value in it. And Noah, you said something in one of your episodes that really resonated with me. You said, and I know you didn't come up with that. I think I've heard it other places, but do unto others what you'd have them do to you. And so for me, I just think like if it was my platform, I want people to share it. And so I want to make sure I always do that and share it. And I want to voice that in there. So again, lead with value, make a meaningful request, mention that you'll share the episode. Getting that stuff down right there are the basics to having a good pitch that's going to help you stand out.
For me, a lot of people were against, as I said earlier, were against the idea about it. And a lot of people really resonate with honest podcasts and have like an honest um personality that people I've had guests be very positive about the flow of my show. I don't really take anything for granted. It's not serious. Now, I do talk about serious stuff, but I try to add like comedy in there and try to make it lighthearted. And, kind of lean into the next question of what advice do you have for people that want to start a podcast?
Yeah, I think that what you just said, Noah, is really key. Like, if you don't mind me asking you a question real quick, Noah, like what you mentioned, like the time that you thought about the podcast and actually started, it took a while. Um, and I think that hearing your answer to that might be helpful a little bit. Like, were you struggling with like imposter syndrome at all, or was if it was strictly things that didn't relate to the podcast, that's fine. We don't need to talk about that necessarily. But if it was things that you're like, oh no, I was nervous, I was scared, like I'm just wondering, was that there for you at all? Because then I'll share my experience as well. But I'm just curious what yours was.
Um, the process of trying to get it was difficult. I really wanted to start a podcast years and years ago. However, I had no idea where to start. I had no knowledge about how podcasts work. I did not know of any platforms. And then I remember I was doing therapy, and I think I was talking to my therapist about it, and he recommended a thing called Anchor. And I was like, "What's that?" And he told me about it, which Anchor's now been rebranded. It's now podcasts or Spotify for podcasters. It used to be called Anchor, but Spotify took over, and now they've had their put their own brand on it, and so now it's owned by Spotify. And he told me that you could, at the time, just record your audio on there, and that you can just upload it. You don't have to do any of that. So I thought, oh, okay. And so I looked into it, and I thought, well, I could record it, but then I had no idea how to post it on all these platforms. And so it kept getting pushed off and pushed off. And then finally, when the podcast class came, learned some more things about it, but there were still a lot of questions I had once the class got done. I I had questions about, well, how do you put it on all these podcast platforms? How do you make artwork for it? And honestly, honest to God, the reason why it really got postponed the longest was the artwork. Because I'm not an artist, I can't draw, I can't design anything. I'm not anyway. And I tried to get people to design it for me, and people wanted high prices for it. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I just went on Photoshop and just tried my best and hardest to do it. I did AI some of it, but most of the artwork's AI. I'll admit it, it's not creative by me, but it saved me money. I did it for free and it's easy. Now, the font and the text and like the parental explicit sticker was me. I put that on there. But the artwork and kind of the design for it was all AI. And so I did that. And then once I figured out how to get posted on there, it was on there. So it wasn't really much imposter syndrome for me. It was more of lack of knowledge for it and kind of just life really got in the way and kind of
Mm.
helped and made it be like a bump in the road for me to not get the podcast going. But once I was able to start and got the hang of it and learned all the stuff, it just kind of flowed. Once I finally got the artwork for it, it really started to flow because I had everything else prior to the artwork being done ready. I had the RSS feed, I had the platform I wanted to post on, I had what platforms I wanted my show to go on and connected. So everything went after I got the artwork. It just was smooth sailing after that.
Oh, that's great. You know, it's interesting because for me, it was like, I'll get back to the question here, but for me, it was the imposter syndrome of like my voice not being comfortable, not wanting to. And I think it's because I didn't have the idea down. And I tried to skip that. I wanted to go straight to artwork and record and all that, but I didn't have the idea down. And therefore, I was like really struggling. So, to answer the question, because you just heard two different perspectives on like what held us back. One was like the knowledge of the craft itself. For me, it was my own insecurities. Everyone hearing this is probably going to fall into one of those two buckets, right? And so that's why I do think it's important. You start with the idea, you start with the why, the purpose behind it. That's so, so important. And then you just can't let yourself be stuck there. And then when it comes to learning, like Noah, you mentioned the artwork. You have to have artwork to have a podcast, which is really funny. Like you can't start a podcast without having it. So you have to have something. And I think that Noah did a really good job, like in listing AI for the parts you couldn't do, and then adding your own flair to it, your own unique perspective to it. Like you can kind of get the vibe of it, right? So have your idea, have your why, build out your artwork, and then just press record. I always recommend doing a little bit of editing. Get your hands a little dirty and try that a little bit. And that's a matter of posting it. And so I know you use Spotify for or podcast, whatever. Spotify podcast is what I call it. There's a technical name for it, but I
Yeah.
use Buzzsprout, which is about the same type of thing. And what you do on these websites is that you upload your final audio and your cover art, which you only have to upload one time. But every time you upload a new episode, it automatically syndicates it, which just means sends it to all the platforms. So it's on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, even YouTube now, and thousands of other places. So there's not a lot of work once you've done the groundwork of creating your artwork and overcoming the imposter syndrome, right? Now it's just about record, edit, post, and it'll automatically do everything for you, getting it out and stuff like that. The initial setup takes a little bit, but it's gotten easier. No, it's gotten so much easier in the last couple of years. You know that now, right? Like how much easier it's just gotten as time goes on. But anyway, my suggestion is if you're thinking about starting, just get out there and do it. Give it a shot. Worst case scenario, you don't love it or it doesn't resonate with people, and that's okay. You tried something new. And I think this is a really valuable medium to get out and try.
Yeah, and my advice to my listeners is if you want to start a show, um just do it. Get an idea. Um when it comes to getting people's opinions, honestly, if you want to do a show so bad and you want to do it on a topic, do it. I mean, people can have their opinions. When I pitched my ideas in my podcast class, a lot of people had doubts about it, and I did not run with those. I just went with my own prerogative. And, if people don't like the show, it's not for everyone's show, but don't change for your audience. Keep the format that you want. If you want to talk about cars, talk about cars. If you want to talk about restaurants and eating, talk about that because someone out there will enjoy that kind of content. And don't let people try to alter your decision making and try to make you change. Well, I recommend you do this kind of topic. No, don't do that. Now, for some, if now people can give you ideas for shows. That's why I always ask you, if there's ideas that you want me to do, I'll do it. And but don't say I think there's a difference in oh, you should do like an episode on politics or it's just compare that's more of a thing, but don't do an episode if people are like do an episode on politics it'll make your show better. No, don't do that. Do it free willingly. And you can be nice and smile and be like, okay, and then just be like, I'm not gonna do that. But be true to yourself. Also, don't try to put on this fake image on here. Um, you're gonna have bad days when you record. Like I've had like not good days, and I'm honest on there. I could be like, I'm not having a good day, so I apologies for the tone that's different. But it's just go with your gut. Don't be scared to try something new, and this honestly, it's one of those things of like, don't really listen to what people say. do it for you and have a good time with it.
Staying true to yourself, no, I think is the most important thing when it comes to podcasting. And I know how much you love politics and would love to listen to a political show. So
Oh, hey,
I'm joking. I know. But the thing is, so many people during political seasons, like political seasons, like election time and stuff. I have a podcast about podcasting, and people are like, you should really cover some politics. Don't listen to that advice. My podcast is for people who want to get into podcasting, not who want to figure out who to vote for. I don't, just like I don't get into politics at all. Like, I have very little opinions or thoughts myself. I love everybody for who they are. And to some people, that sounds unheard of, right? But the reality is that means I just don't have the platform to talk about it. And I think you gave really good advice. Do the show that you want to do. You can definitely take feedback if you feel there's merit to it. But if there's not, don't try to be a people pleaser because people will pull you in 1,000 different directions and you'll lose yourself in it. And eventually you'll burn out and stop because it's not actually who you are. Stay true to yourself, I think, is the best advice we can give.
absolutely. For people that want to find you and kind of keep updates on you, where all can they find you at?
Yeah, thanks for that, Noah. Everything I do is actually at podmatch.com/free. Yeah, and that page will just take you to a spot, whether you're a podcast host, guest, or aspiring guest or host. It'll give you some ideas. Actually, just a few things. It doesn't ask for your email address or anything like that. That might be able to help you along the way, just making that next step the right step so that you can start faster than me and Noah did in our podcasting journey. So that's podmatch.com/free.
Well, Alex, I appreciate you so much, and I just wanted to give you a huge thank you and be like, Alex was the one that reached out to me about wanting to be on their program. And I've always been hesitant about when people reach out to my email. Y'all have heard me say that it's all been scams. I was hesitant about it, but all these episodes with the guests on that have appeared on my show have not, if it wasn't for Alex, those people would have not been on my show. So Alex was the one that reached out to me about his company. He reached out to me about Podmatch, and I wanted to, and I checked it out and thought it was actually legit. I looked at all the reviews, and honest to God, it's been the best experience I've had. All these guests have come from him. If it wasn't for him, all my these shows would not have happened. I've had some of the most amazing guests on there, and have still a lot more to come. And so I just wanted to say thank you, Alex, for giving me the opportunity to be on the platform and to share my experience on there and have people come on my show and tell their story. If it wasn't for you, this would not have happened. So I just wanted to give a huge thank you to you.
Noah, thank you for that. Seriously, that just made my day. That really, really means a lot to hear. So I appreciate you so much.
Well, I appreciate you so much for being on here. And if you want to check him out, I highly recommend it. If you want to start your podcast, I highly recommend going through Podmatch and doing it. It's a great platform. I'm just going to plug you all I want because this has been such an absolute honor to be a part of it. It it's on there. It has so many great tools that he has barely scratched the surface on it. All the information's on there. So I highly recommend it. But Alex, again, thank you so much for being on here and sharing some tips with my listeners. And I hope people will take it and run with it and uh, just have fun with it.
Yeah, thank you again, Noah, for having me. And you're a leader. I'm sure people are going to take action after hearing you talk. So thank you again.
You're more than welcome, and I appreciate you being on. So as always, I will put Alex's links down below in the description box. So all of his links, his website, his social media platforms will be easy access for you guys so you don't have to go searching for everywhere. But I just wanted to again say thank you, Alex, for joining me today. To keep me updated on social media, on Instagram and TikTok, it's Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcast. And you can also catch Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcasts from. I am on Amazon Music, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's basically where you get all your podcasts from. Again, I wanted to say a huge thank you to Podmatch for being the sponsor of today's video. Again, if you would like to begin using Podmatch to start earning commission and start building relationships, and remember to go to joinpodmatch.com/lethalvenom, and I will put that in the description box as well. But I appreciate you guys all for joining me today and listening to this episode. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.